Welcome to the Bookyard. I'm Sam.
And I'm Kai.
This is going to be an amazing episode.
It is. I'm pretty excited.
We both loved the book we're talking about today. Today we're going to talk a little bit about a book that we both read this year. It is called I Who Have Never Known Men. It was written in 1995 by Jacqueline Hartman. It is translated from the original French to English. So I'm also sure that I butchered her name as well. But
I'm sure it's something like Jacqueline or something crazy.
like Jacqueline or something cool.
Yeah.
It's something way cooler than what I just said.
Yeah.
But it is a translated book from French to English.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a dystopian novel.
It is. I think this is one of my 5 stars of the year.
Mine too.
Yeah. Did you rate it
was a
5? It was really good. And I think that it was one, I'm trying to remember, but I think it was one I just found randomly on like Instagram that somebody had read. And I was like, hey, you should read this.
Yeah, we both had it on our TBR list.
Yes, that's what it was. So it was pretty good.
I think it's definitely one of the books that we've read close enough to the same time that we were both like so absolutely in awe of it at the same time. I think it's a book that I would recommend that every woman in her 20s read.
I agree. And I also think that we did a buddy read for this one.
I think we did.
Wow, I just barely...
I can't remember putting my comments in there.
No, I don't think we did that much.
Okay.
This was a pretty quick book.
It was.
So I think that I just got so invested in it that I wasn't even paying attention.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to me too. I distinctly remember being at the gym listening to the book because I was so excited about it.
I bet. That's hilarious. Well, okay, I'm going to share a quick little blurb to get you guys on board on what this is about. All right, so this blurb is actually the one that they have on Goodreads. And it says, deep underground, 39 women are kept in isolation in a cage. Above ground, a world awaits. Has it been abandoned? Devastated by a virus? Watched over by guards, the women have no memory of how they got there, no notion of time, and only vague recollections of their lives before. But as the burn of electric light merges day into night, the numberless years pass. A young girl, the 40th prisoner, sits alone, an outcast in the corner. Soon she will show herself to be the key to the others' escape and survival in a strange world that awaits them above ground. The women who will never know men.
I love it. It brings the whole book back to me.
I know the like little blurb just gives that eerie feeling that the book had.
Yeah. And I think one of the craziest parts of this blurb was that it gives you the expectation of what this dystopian novel is going to be. It's going to be about a bunker and, you know, women and their survival, but it wasn't what I was expecting at all. Was this book what you were expecting?
No. And just to kind of throw in there, once again, this is a book podcast, so expect a couple spoilers here and there. If you haven't read this book yet, please do. It's amazing.
Yes, and we will get to the end because a big part of this episode will be talking about the ending of this book.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't want to throw you off there. But let's talk about the concept of this book for a minute.
Yeah, I love it.
First of all, we never know the main character's name. The other women in the bunker refer to her as child or girl. She is the youngest prisoner.
Yes.
So she's just a girl, whereas all of these women are grown.
Yeah, like 40s, 50s.
Yeah, and she doesn't have a memory before the bunker. So this is her at her first part of life.
Right.
So she basically comes to consciousness in a bunker, which I think is crazy.
I would agree.
It's awesome, but crazy. Her first memories are of being in the bunker. So she was tiny when they were put in there. I did have a question. What is your first memory?
Okay, my first memory is, I think I had to have been 3 or 4. I don't think I was much older than that. And it was just me, my mom, my dad, and my brother living in, we call it the old house.
Ooh, the old house.
It was just the house that we had before the house before then, you know.
There's the pre house.
Yeah, there's no significance to the old. It was a pretty nice house, but it was, I want to say, I mean, I was little, so it was probably like 8 o'clock, but like my parents had put me to bed and I had a radio in my room and it had like a little remote to it. And I didn't think that it worked. So I was playing with it and I just was pretending it was a phone, you know, because I'm 3 or 4, and my radio started playing and it was so loud, and I just remember freaking out and like turning it off and being like, my parents are gonna come scream at me.
They're gonna kill me.
Yeah, and they didn't care. I don't think they even heard.
Oh.
But that was yeah. But that was my first memory. What is your first memory?
Honestly, we've talked about this a little bit. I don't have a ton of memories from my childhood.
Trauma.
This is gonna sound like way more traumatic than it is. I just genuinely don't remember a ton of my childhood.
I don't either. It's okay.
But I think my first memory that is like an actual like story to me, because I'm sure I remember like faces and whatever from before.
Mm-hmm.
But the first like cohesive memory for me was of playing at my cousin's house when I was maybe around like 4 or 5.
Okay.
My cousin Hayden and I were really close growing up. He's like a year older than me. And he was basically my hero. I loved him. My first memory is when we were in his driveway. We were capturing little roly-polies or potato bugs, if you're wrong.
Ew.
We were running around frantically trying to scoop up as many as we could because we were convinced that the birds that were flying around were planning to eat them.
I get it.
So we'd scoop them up and put them in our little like glass bug observatory thing because he had all these like cool science things. I loved them.
Ooh, wow.
And we had like those little, you know, the little bug kits where it has like little
the
tweezers.
little tweezers, the plastic
like, the
ones.
little green plastic tweezers.
I think mine were blue.
We were like running around in like cracks of his driveway like, they're gonna get him, we gotta put him away.
Did you accidentally smush any to death while doing it?
Honestly, I don't think so, but we were both really like, we were both first children.
It's your
we were the
business.
firstborn, so we were just like, nah, no one's getting eaten here
We're
today.
saving them.
But yeah, I pretty much forgot everything that came before my parents' divorce, but it wasn't like I was raised in a bunker. So
I get it. I mean, obviously, this girl was super young when she was thrown into this bunker, but I want to talk a little bit about what this bunker was and like how it was set up.
yeah, let's set the scene.
I'm ready. I mean, I imagine like just a garage, basically. Like it's just like cement. I don't know if that's what you imagine.
With like no windows.
No. It's just like, you know when you go in those unfinished basements and it's just like complete cement?
Yes.
That, but like no windows, no nothing. But sorry, that's just what I picture.
I do also, because they did talk about how the guards did like a lap around them.
Mm-hmm.
So in my brain, it's that. It's like a cement area.
Yeah.
But like maybe 3 or 4 feet from the actual like cement walls,
There's like
cage bars.
Okay, that's what I
right?
thought
So
as
they're
well.
like lapping around them because I think they said that they could see them in all 360 degrees.
I think so as well. Okay, I'm glad that I was picturing the right thing here.
Yeah.
So just to kind of set the scene of like what it kind of looked like, but as well as the environment, kind of go into that, they were not allowed to touch one another. They had to cook rations every day for their food. So they would just kind of roll in a little cart for them that had like, I think it was just basic potatoes and...
Yeah, they did say, one part I specifically remember was that there wasn't always meat. There wasn't always things that they could have.
Yeah.
So they would sometimes hope for something and it kind of depended on the time.
Right. Well, and I remember that they had so little things to worry about that they would argue over how to prepare the potatoes when there was only like 2 ways to do it.
Yeah, they didn't have like a grill or anything like that. I think they were boiled, or I think that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, but I think that they just pretended
They
to
thought about it.
bicker over it.
It
Yeah.
was definitely like total sensory deprivation because along with the food, it came at random times of the day. Do you remember that? They didn't.
Yeah.
They couldn't time it.
No, because along with that, they also just had a bunch of mattresses. Like each woman had their own mattress. They could talk, but I imagine that they just, when they woke up in the morning, would just kind of stack their mattresses in one place and then just kind of sit around.
Mm-hmm.
But they did have like a little kitchen so that they could cook. And as far as the women themselves, there was kind of a hierarchy based on who was the oldest. And that meant that you were like the wisest and you could make the decisions for the group. And there were obviously little cliques because, you know, it's all women. And all of them only had little hazy memories about their lives before.
Yeah, like there were some specific people who were well respected because they could remember things like, oh, I used to do this in my previous life. I don't remember everything about it, but they would be able to like give more specific advice about some things, and people utilize them for that knowledge.
Right. And I do remember that they would also sew things occasionally.
Yeah, they had ways to make clothes. Like, I think they were just little like gowns, like, I don't know, almost hospital gowns that kind of made it sound like.
Yeah, and they would use their hair to thread. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is so crazy.
Insane.
So the way this story goes is that the girl is curious about things and asks the women questions. And they always tell her that there's no point in her knowing. So basically, as she's growing up, they're not answering any of her questions about what life is like outside of the bunker. So all that she knows is life inside of this basically sensory deprived tank.
Mm-hmm.
So because they keep these secrets from her, she starts getting a little resentful. And so this is all happening when she is kind of coming of age. She's becoming almost like a teenager. I think they said she was maybe 12, but they were estimating, obviously, because they didn't have like exact timelines.
Yeah.
So she starts inventing stories in her head, especially about this young guard.
Because I'm thinking she had to have been like 14 or 15 then.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Depends. I'm assuming it comes when puberty is starting for her.
Mm-hmm.
But she does specifically say that she never gets like a period. And she doesn't know if that's because of her environment or if she just was deprived of some kind of nutrient. But it's obviously as she's coming into this like puberty age.
Yeah.
So in this cage, there are guards that do laps, and she recognizes that one is a little younger than the others. In her head, she starts inventing these stories, and they feature this young guard. A lot of times it's how she'll surprise him, and then they'll kiss, or, you know, like she's inventing these little fantasies.
Like little sexual fantasies.
Yeah, like little sexual fantasies, or like even I think she says like one day they just like look at each other and it like, electrifies her. And obviously like this is what she knows. So she's just like, okay, yeah. So the women suspect that she's thinking of something because she's literally walking around with like these small little smiles on her face or, you know, just acting like she has a secret, you know? And so they try to pry it out of her because they're all sitting there bored in this bunker and she doesn't want to tell her. So she finally gets close to one of the women because after they send so many people up to her and she's like, I'm not telling you anything. And Thea is one of the other women. And she tends to respect her a little bit more. I think she shows her a little bit more kindness than the other women do. The girl has this curiosity that's such a huge contrast between her and the other women who are all pretty resigned to their fates at this point.
Yeah.
But Anthea kind of respects that part of her. The girl tells her that she is like has things that are her own, even if they're within her head.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthea kind of grows to really like this girl. There is a really good quote that kind of captures this whole spot where Anthea's talking to her and she's like, what's going on? You know? And when she tells the girls or the other women, I want to know these things, and they don't want to explain it to her.
Yeah. Okay, I'm ready. I like this quote. I think I know what you're going to use.
Okay. They ask her, like, why there's no point in you knowing these things. Why would you want to know? Mm-hmm. And she says, because I want to know. Sometimes you can use what you know, but that's not what counts most. I want to know everything there is to know. Not because it's any use, but for the pleasure of knowing. And now I demand that you teach me everything you know, even if I will never be able to use it.
And that was super cool. And I think they do start teaching her a little bit about like math and I think they've given her a small education as she was growing up.
That's true.
And with that education, they taught her basic like counting, you know. And
Thea teaches her that, I think, after
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember at what point she learns it, but they teach her to count. And because the girl is so curious about what's happening in their timeline and how long they are sleeping and all these things. So she learns to count so she can keep track of how much time has passed. And at first, she really has to concentrate on it. And when she's sitting there, she has to really put all of her attention into counting. And then eventually she can like count how much time has passed in her sleep.
Yeah, and eventually she does share it with the other women and they all start counting. So it gives them this something to do, but she becomes like this internal clock for the women because she's so curious. She develops this time system, and they're realizing they're not letting us sleep the same amount of time every night. We don't even know if we're sleeping at night. We don't know what time our food will get here. They're trying to make it confusing for us.
Right. And along with that, it was also confusing about the guard change, because they thought that there was going to be a specific time that they changed, but that also seemed random.
Mm-hmm.
So it was confusing on what time clock that the guards were on as well.
But basically, this girl ends up changing because they've been there for years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
At least 12, because that's how old, or at least as old as the girl is. So they've been here for tons of years. And the girl, as she gets older, is starting to wake these things in the women, this curiosity and just wanting to know what is happening in their lives.
Right. And so they're doing all of this, they're trying to figure things out. And then one day they get out of the cage.
Yay.
Which is so crazy. So what was happening is the guard was bringing in their, I believe it was their dinner or one of the meals. And how they did it is they had to unlock the cage and then push the cart in. And then as far as I understand, the women just grabbed the stuff and then they would take the cart back out.
Mm-hmm.
But they had them very like trained, like you can't run off or anything like that. It was just a very like amicable
Like it was
exchange.
very structured. They had whips and everything. And I think at the beginning it said that towards the beginning of their captivity, the women would try to get close to them during this exchange. But obviously after you've been whipped a few times, it doesn't work out that well. So they're kind of well trained.
Right. So they're doing this meal exchange and then an alarm sounds and all of the three guards just kind of look at each other and then they run off. The door is open to the cage, like they leave them there. And the girl is obviously like, this is our chance. Like we have to get out. And a lot of the women are just stuck in their like shoes because they're, first of all, it's a sound that none of them have ever heard before. They only have ever heard the soldiers walking around in their own voices.
True. So it's completely new to them.
Yeah.
And the girl really leads the charge. Her
Yes.
and Anthea are like, we have to go. We have to get out.
So they leave, and I'm making this up because this is what I remember in my head. So if this isn't right, please correct me.
Okay.
But as far as I envision it in my head, I envision that they leave like this door from the cement, and then it's just like a completely white like hallway, and there's like the stairs right there. Like I imagine it.
Yes, they also have like an office because they mentioned that there's like a guard spot where there are lockers where all of their supplies are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming they're leaving through a door in the cement. And then outside of that, it's maybe like an employee break room area basically for these guards, and then a stairway up.
Right. And I imagine it kind of like futuristic. I don't know why. That's what I made up in my head.
I definitely imagine it very modern.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Like I imagine it's just like white and modern and like beautiful. And the girl is like, let's go. And so she starts leading everyone up the stairs because they don't know where anything is. They do check out the employee area first, and they notice that there really isn't much personal items.
True. They also notice the food storage area because they do have quite a bit of food there for the women.
Yeah. So it's kind of bare. Like there's a couple of personal items, but there really isn't like pictures or like crazy things. It's just kind of like the guards' boots.
No, absolutely no clues as to like where they're from or who they are, or they just have like standard issue uniform, boots, things like that.
So they get outside, and it's just like an open field. There's just like trees, and like it's just kind of like a weird open forest field situation.
Yeah, they talk a lot about how the bunker is on like just a little bit of a hill. So what I'm imagining here is like rolling plains.
Yeah,
with some trees like in the distance, because they do talk about that first night they try to get to the trees and everything. So these like rolling plains, and in the hill there's a flat cement side where the door is.
Okay, that's what I envision as well.
I do too. And I don't know if that's because I saw a picture of it somewhere, or if it just kind of, she may just have been a good writer.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is just kind of left up to your imagination. I think they do explain a little bit, but I think a lot of the settings are just kind of what you make it up to be in your head.
Yeah. So after they get out, they obviously try to make it to the trees because they want to get as far away from the bunker as they possibly can.
Right.
But they also don't have any supplies. So they have to stay close enough to be able to restock on food.
Yeah, because there's nobody around. There's no men. There's no other women. Like, they can't find a soul.
Yeah, the guards have completely disappeared. They don't know where they've gone. They don't know if they're coming back, and they don't know if they're going to be looking for them. So that first night, they kind of choose like a place that has some trees. I believe they try to make it to the river. But they can't carry a ton of things. So they sleep beneath the stars that night, and they have to go, and they're sleeping out in the wilderness basically, and they all are so excited to be free.
They're thrilled, but there's also a big chunk of them that are nervous, and they're like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, as you would be, I think.
Right.
Sure.
But the girl is ecstatic.
Yeah. And they go this way for a little bit of time. So they bathe in the river, and they get to experience these joys that they haven't in years and that the girl has never experienced before. So she gets to see the sky and feel wind and listen to what the women are talking about, because for the first time in her life, they are outside of the bunker, and there is now a reason for her to know what being a person is like.
Right. And also for the women having those conversations, because they have that little bit of hope, and they're like, oh,
yeah,
actually.
And they have all these doubts that they're thinking there are other people. Like, we are in the world now. We're not locked away. You could need to know these things. So they kind of start to educate her and everything, but it takes them a while to get the courage to go further from the bunker.
Yeah. And they finally do. They finally get that courage to leave the bunker that they know that is abandoned, and they start traveling, and they find another bunker. And
I think it takes them like a week of walking. Yeah. It takes quite a bit of time.
Yes. And I don't remember what direction they go in, but they finally find another bunker, and they're all really nervous, but the girl is like, I'll go in. She's ready. So they go down, and they find the exact same scenario, except when they're walking down the stairs, they get the most awful scent ever. And that is another 40 women who are dead in the bunker.
Yeah. And it ends up that they've chalked up their whole escape to this random food timing, right? Because these other women weren't being given food at the time the alarm rang, so their guards disappeared and never came back for them. So they are stuck in this cage.
Right, because these women are completely reliant on the men bringing them food and waking them up and turning on the lights, like the whole thing.
Well, and it's been quite a bit of time, because it took them 7 days to walk that far, but they had been out of the bunker several days too. So none of the women were alive. And even if they had been alive, they didn't have a key. So they find this spot. They eventually find a spot to make camp, basically. And they want to go and see if anyone is surviving and choose some places to go. So some of them stay behind, because there are older women in this group at this point.
Right. And some of them
stay behind.
Yeah, and there are women who also are sick.
Yeah.
And get like regular people illnesses, like cancer, as far as they assume, with like the education that some of the women had from their lives before they were here.
Yeah. So they have to leave some of the older ones behind, but the girl and Anthea always go together. And so they kind of do this radius thing where they'll set off in one direction, and they'll go. And then as a group, they walk for several years. You know, they go together, and they keep coming across these bunkers. And some of them are women, and there are 40 women. And in some of them, there are men.
Yeah, I think the ratio was like there was one to every, like, I want to say like 10 or 8.
Yeah, there were a lot more bunkers filled with women than there were with men.
But it's interesting because they find them in different states. Sometimes they'll find them with all the women lying on beds by themselves, or sometimes they'll find them reaching through the bars, or sometimes they'll find them
huddled together.
Like, it was very interesting on how differently each bunker ended up leaving their lives.
Yes. And this whole time the bunkers are still functioning. So they have power. None of the food is going bad. So these women have food readily available for them.
Yes.
And they're coming to understand that they may be alone in the world.
Right. Because they still have yet to run into guards or anyone else.
Yeah. So as they continually are exploring the world, they start to realize that some of the women are getting older.
Mm-hmm.
They are getting sick. And they really start to realize that they may be walking indefinitely if they don't stop and settle down.
Right.
So they do start to build a camp. And the girl herself becomes this very cool like carpenter out of the like small trees
totally
that
does.
they find.
Uh-huh.
She keeps herself and her wonderful, curious brain occupied by learning how to make things like tables and chairs and whole houses.
Right.
And she talks about how the women basically create these social groups where some of the women really just want their own privacy. After being in a bunker for this many years, they want to live in their own little hut.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the women pair off and they are in love and they have their own home. And some of them want to live in small groups. So they build what's basically the equivalent of a small town where they're based. And they start to realize that these women are going to die.
Yeah, and for the girl, she's also very frustrated because she's ready to explore and continue going, and some of these women are just like, I'm okay. And one quote that I really love from this book is she's talking about this, and she's talking about how she's just doesn't understand because they're free. And the quote says, they wanted something all their lives, but now that they had it, they didn't recognize it. And I just love that. Their whole lives, they were in these bunkers for at least 10, 15 years. They wanted to get out. And now that they had gotten out, they were fine settling. And I think that's fair. But I think for the girl, it was so confusing.
Well, and she wasn't ready and not at the same life state that these other women were as well. They were older. A lot of them had been married and had had families and friends and were ready to be done.
Yeah. But
she was young. And even when they settled down, I think they said she was maybe 20 or 30. So she obviously was at a very different point in her life.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to talk a lot about how she was the person who was assigned eventually to kill the women as they were dying or in pain. That was really impactful.
It really was, because you see these women settle in these little towns that they create, because I think that they make one and then they might move a little bit later when they run out of food and build a new town, but like they were very settle oriented at this point, and the women would get sick and would be ready to go. They would have an injury or just get older, because was it Anthea? One of them was like a physician before.
Anthea had been a nurse.
That's what it was.
And she remembered, and I think she was the one who taught her how to like find the heart so she could stab that person.
Yeah. So they had enough medical knowledge to know when somebody's life was coming to an end or when they had a lot of pain, or helping diagnose those people. And she became the designated person to kill them because she really didn't feel much remorse for it. I mean, she of course was like, oh, that kind of stinks, but she was able to go in and just kill them and be done.
Well, she also was this person. I think this is one of the most impactful parts of the book, is that she's this person who was raised as close to without culture as you can find.
Absolutely.
Without any kind of background or preconceived notion that, you know, death is awful, or religion. She didn't grow up with religion or any kind of ideas about what being a human should be. So when these women start dying, they really turn to her because in their brains, even though they know it's necessary, they know that they don't want to be here suffering and that they have a very limited amount of medicine. They don't want to be the person who takes another person's life.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have that hesitation.
No.
I think that's really impactful because it definitely makes you think about why we have the ideas that we have and what really makes us people.
Right. It is super interesting because, like you said, she is somebody without culture, without anything, because she also asks questions to these women when they are in the cage and they don't answer.
Yeah.
So she really is without anything, and that's who she grows to be.
That's true.
So while she's the person to take everybody's life, they continually die and die and die. And because I mean, there's those people that they left behind in the first place. So their numbers are really low until it's just her and one other person. And then she helps that person pass on as well. And she talks about how relieved she is because now she can continue searching and going out and finding new things.
Yeah. At that point, she really didn't feel a ton of guilt because, again, she didn't have that notion in her brain that she should feel guilty for that. She just felt relieved and excited that she could start exploring again. I think that she explained it so well. The women were her only family, but they were also the only thing between her and the freedom of being alone and her choice.
Right, because that's what she wanted. Although she was fine settling down with everybody, she was also ready to keep exploring and soaking in all those different experiences.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was impactful, after everyone died, she immediately starts walking and she just chooses a direction.
Mm-hmm.
She does this for years.
Yeah.
And so I think that leads us to, we need to talk about the ending.
Yes.
She was all alone. Mm-hmm. And as she walks for years, she never finds another person. She finds bunker after bunker. And at some point she does find a bus that was used to transport the guards.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't give her any clues. They didn't have any personal belongings or anything like that.
No.
What she does end up finding towards the end is a bunker that was built for possibly one person or maybe a family.
Yeah. And it's extremely luxurious.
Yeah, it has like a bed in it that was like comfortable and so many books. So as she's getting older and everything, this is, I think, well after her 40s and 50s,
mm-hmm.
she has this home base that is filled with books. So she does get to learn about life before the bunker.
Yeah.
But she basically just gets to reflect on her life and whether she's on Earth or somewhere else or what's going on. But she never comes across another person.
No, and I think that she, if I remember right, she writes like a little note mm-hmm. and then just leaves it and passes on.
Yeah. She never found another person and she just leaves them her last note. I know you really wanted a theory for what the ending meant.
I did. I finished it because she just was like, and then I died and that was it. And I was like, girl, are you for real right now? We didn't get any answers that entire book.
Yeah, talk me through your theory.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Or theories.
So when I, like I was saying, first finished the book, I started looking for theories everywhere. And I felt like I really didn't get anywhere.
That's true.
I started looking more for the podcast, and I actually found this awesome Reddit thread about the ending and what people thought.
Reddit has been so helpful for our book dives.
It has.
People are so fun.
I absolutely love it. So I'm going to read off a couple of different theories, and then I want to kind of talk about my ending theory. So one theory is that this was a social experiment, and that's why the energy was still running and everything, and then like something happens. But
can you imagine what a dick move that social experiment would be?
Is that not crazy? But like it was some like rich person who was just doing some social experiment.
It's Elon Musk coded.
Oh my gosh.
He just throws you on an extra planet and is like, I don't care.
Yes, because all around all these theories are under the belief that this is a different planet. This is not Earth.
Yes, there are quite a few that are like, yeah, this isn't Earth. And she even muses that for a while. She's like, I felt like I would have come across something, maybe an ocean or a
right,
like city.
Well, and there is some weather,
mm-hmm.
but it's different enough that nobody thinks that this is Earth.
Yeah, it doesn't snow or anything crazy. It's always pretty temperate.
Yes. So, but people think that maybe it was a social experiment and then something happened, but that's why they were in the bunkers.
Okay.
Another idea is that there was a nuclear attack. And so they were using these bunkers to be able to repopulate the Earth. So they took all of these people out and put them somewhere else after the nuclear attack on Earth and was holding them until it was safe and then we're going to use them to repopulate and take them back to Earth.
I do have a rebuttal to that theory.
I'm ready, because this wasn't my theory. This is Reddit.
No, that's totally fine. Okay, Reddit guy. Let's talk about that.
I'm ready.
This is a repopulation thing, why, first of all, are we separating genders?
Yeah,
that's okay. We can hold them for a certain time. But why are we taking grown women who've already had children? If we wanted to repopulate the earth, we would have taken the youngest women. Because if we're waiting for a certain amount of time to let them repopulate, we would have chosen the women who would be coming into their repopulating prime.
Right.
Well, so like the girl.
Right. Well, and going along with that, I wonder also if they didn't know how long it was going to take.
That's true.
So they originally were having women who would be ready to have kids in 2 years.
Right.
Or even still were able to have kids in 2 years. I mean, this is just dumb theories.
Dumb theories, but I like it.
Yes.
I definitely wouldn't expect it to be a repopulation effort.
No, but fun. Next one is that there was a war going on at Earth, and the siren is them calling them back to Earth.
Oh, okay.
Kind of gives an explanation onto why the guards left so quickly and were never there again.
Yeah, that's true.
But doesn't really explain the bunker and why there were women there and men in some.
Right. That's true.
It's hard because I really couldn't find a theory that captured it all.
Yeah.
It would capture a little piece and then be like, eh.
Yeah.
So another theory is that it was like a post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland.
Okay.
They were waiting out the apocalypse to repopulate again. I think the repopulate is the best explanation people have for there being men and women, but I don't understand why they would be separate. And like you said, the age.
Yeah.
Very confusing.
I do think I would choose like a variety of ages too, just in case.
Yeah. So some people think that, but there is this one theory that I thought was kind of fun. So it says, this was a year ago, but the Reddit user's name is shoutoutmapes12.
Way to be, shout out Mapes. Oh my gosh, is that from Dune?
Shout out Mapes?
Yeah.
I don't know, is it?
Yeah, okay. I immediately recognize it. Anything from Dune I'm going to be there for, but I just looked it up. Shout out Mapes was the head housekeeper in the Imperial residence in the city of Arrakeen on the planet Arrakis. So
that's so funny. Sam would know that.
Two things we like about this guy. He likes Dune and he likes this one. Or honestly, it's probably a woman.
Let's be real.
Both Shout Out Mapes and this book heavily woman coded.
Absolutely. But they say just finished reading, and although figuring it out is definitely not point of the book, I share your theory about the cages being a necessary evil in hopes of repopulating and inhabiting a world recovering from an apocalypse, like humanity's insurance policy. One thought I had about how the guards disappeared so quickly and that the bus load of guards died in that atmosphere of the world was deadly to the guards but not the prisoners. Perhaps project to create a special group of humans that could potentially survive and repopulate one day. The obvious flaw in this theory is that without the ability to reproduce, men and women kept separate, humanity's insurance policy would only last for one generation. Maybe the reason for including one younger person in each bunker, I wish the author had confirmed this, was eventually to allow for those children to reproduce and extend humanity's hopes. So I don't know that I was 100% in that, but it was fun to think about why the guards just disappeared and died, but the people were fine.
That is interesting, but I don't think they ever found a younger person like the other girl.
See, and Shout Out Mapes didn't really know either.
That's why she died in Dune.
Well, that's Shout Out Mapes 1. This is Shout Out Mates 12.
Ah, okay, sorry, 12.
So there are obviously a lot of theories. The theory that I think I'm sticking with is that these people were brought to a different planet by some evil man. It had to be a man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just for fun, like a social experiment, or I kind of go along with the theory of maybe trying to alter humans, and for that he needed like a scrapped base, if that makes sense.
I do think that could have been a little bit more reasonable than some of the other ones.
Yeah, but that's like the best that I could think of, because all the other ones were just so out there. But I get it. The book made it seem so out there.
That's true.
But going along with that, I do have just one more comment. I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
But another person on this Reddit thread, their name, I'm not on Reddit enough, so I don't know if this is actually their name or just what it is, but it says deleted. I don't know if their name is deleted.
Oh, they're no longer a user, so they like don't have an account anymore.
Okay, so shout out Mapes13 then. I'm glad you cleared that up for me. Thank you. Yeah. But they said, figured I'd throw this out there just because I also finished the book. I personally interpret the frustration and lack of answers about the state of the world to maybe be an intended effect from the author. This feeling from the narrator meant to be a parallel to the frustration humanity feels with how we will never get a direct answer with why we are alive and what the point of life is. I think the author is trying to show us another way to look at life. A life involving living each day is radical acceptance of the unknowns in life, but never stopping our research for knowledge.
I like that.
I figured you would. That's more Sam's take on the ending.
Yeah, I on the like contrasting side, I wouldn't change the ending for sure. I definitely, as soon as I finished the book, I didn't look for theories. I kind of was immediately in the acceptance mode and also the reflection mode about it. I think that it genuinely has to be the purpose of the author. So I liked that comment. I didn't necessarily relate it to like humanity as a whole or how we should perceive our own world, but I definitely thought that it was a lot about the way that this woman was left without answers and the way that she had to reflect on her own life because of that.
Yeah.
It was more about her own journey than humanity's journey for me, I think. There is this quote that was in the book that I loved.
I'm ready.
It was, "There's no continuity, and the world I have come from is utterly foreign to me. I haven't heard its music. I haven't seen its painting. I haven't read its books. I know only the stony plain, wandering, and the gradual loss of hope. I am the sterile offspring of a race about which I know nothing, not even whether it has become extinct. Perhaps somewhere humanity is flourishing under the stars, unaware that a daughter of its blood is ending her days in silence. There is nothing we can do about it." I really loved it.
Damn.
It conveys the sense of being lost and the sense that she felt her whole life of being other from humanity.
Yeah.
And I think that she was in such a state where she felt so apart from humans most of her life. And towards the end, she's reflecting that she didn't get to have the experiences that others had.
Right. But I think also she's accepting that I am a daughter of its blood. I like that because although she didn't get those experiences, she was still of the same people.
Yes. And there are two more quotes on here that she reflects on. One of them was, "I have never known who or what I am supposed to be. The only thing I know for sure is that I am supposed to be more than I have been." So she recognizes her humanity. She recognizes what she could have been and would have been were it not for her circumstances.
Yeah.
And then the last one that I genuinely loved and for me summed up the book was, "I was forced to acknowledge too late, much too late, that I too had loved, that I was capable of suffering, and that I was human after all."
This book was amazing, everyone.
Yeah, it was by far one of my favorite reads of the year. It was a 5-star for me.
It was for me as well. And I like that we took endings in different ways too. I think that it shows a variety of what the ending did to people. Because like I said, it was hard for me to find that group of people who were like, ooh, what is the theory? But there were also these people like Sam who were just like, yeah, that's how it be. And that was it.
Yeah. And I genuinely, if you are listening to this, I would love to hear what you think about this book.
Yeah.
And if you ended up having a theory, or if you, like myself, liked the reflection aspect of the ending, I would genuinely want to know.
Yeah. Well, and I think my closing thing after looking at all of these theories, as well as that last comment that I had from Deleted.
Hey, Deleted.
is that I'm okay with being like, you know what, there wasn't a theory if it's a reflection of human civilization.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Not thinking about any more theories, as being like, this was just about the big perspective of us never knowing but always growing to learn more.
Yeah.
I'm into that. Because I
like
need
it.
something. I'm not as adult as you and just being like, yeah, whatever. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this journey. The last 2 episodes that we've had have been pretty book heavy, pretty talking about plots. But next week, we have another theory, something exciting, and oh my goodness, I can't wait. This is the second of Sam and I's big theories that we have all reading.
They're well-established scientific theories in our brains.
Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying. Is the smut to plot ratio.
Gotta have some smut, gotta have some plot, and every book is gonna have a different ratio. So we're gonna dive into that.
We are. And we're also going to talk about the TikTok viral book, Bride.
Because this is definitely a book where we need to talk about the S&P ratio, as I like to call it. This is our second theory. It deserves a beautiful name. It is the S&P ratio. And Bride is up there. It needs to have some relationship with that.
Yeah, so we're really excited to talk about that. But if you like today's episode, you are in luck. We post every Monday. And if you need your fix throughout the week, you can also follow us on TikTok and Instagram at the Bookyard Pod, or you can follow us on YouTube at the Bookyard_pod. Thanks for listening, guys.
Have a good week. We'll see you next time.
Bye.